So even when you have maybe some really difficult memories, if you can carry on that one good thing and even share that with your kids and say, yeah, grandma and I, tough, hard, but I do remember this. And isn't that lovely that I have this memory?
Yeah.
And you can share that. That changes the conversation with your kids and then their whole outlook on family life.
You're listening to episode 66, How to Deal with Sibling Rivalry, with parenting coach DJ Stutz. DJ, I'm so excited to have you be on this podcast. As we were talking about just a moment ago, I don't have kids. And so anytime there are parenting related questions or topics that come up, I like to make sure that we have experts like yourself come in and talk about how to navigate parenting challenges. In this instance, really sibling rivalry. Maybe you could just introduce yourself a little bit and share with the audience a little bit about you and what you do.
Sure, of course. Yeah, my name is DJ Stutz, and I am a parent coach. My coaching business, as well as my podcast, is called Imperfect Heroes because all parents are imperfect, but they are heroic in the things that they're accomplishing and trying to do. And so we feed into that. I'm also a children's author, and so do have 3 books. These are my babies. Roman is bigger. He's bigger than mad. It's a book about vocabulary and emotions and how to really help them. And then Roman is a bigger brother, talking about sibling rivalry. So he gets a baby brother. And is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? They cry, they stink. It's all kinds of fun. And then the other one is Oscar's True Friends. And that's just about a fish that helps his friends realize that we all have different talents and abilities. And isn't that wonderful? We don't all have to be the same, nor do we want to be the same. So there's that. I am the oldest of 7 kids. I have 5 of my own. I have 13 grandchildren, and I have 70 nieces and nephews between my husband and our families put together. I am a retired teacher. I've got over 20 years of experience in the classroom, and yeah, I guess that's enough.
Yeah. Uh, I'm just feeling like you're the perfect person to have talk about kids because you
Oh,
that's so many kids in your life.
all my life, kids.
One of the things that I was thinking we could talk about when it comes to sibling rivalry, please help me with this because, again, I don't have kids. I might not be able to really be understanding all of the nuances of some of this. But like when siblings have conflict, and I can think about my sister and I growing up, I was really mean. I don't know if people would know that. They probably don't know that about me. I was really a very mean sister. I've talked about that with my own therapist, different things that I thought were going on in our family dynamics. But one of the things that I would be thinking about if I had kids and there was all of this sibling rivalry going on is this sense of right and wrong and like how to help kids develop a sense of right or wrong or a sense of morals. Do you have thoughts related to how parents might navigate that?
I have lots of them.
Okay, cool.
So, yeah, sibling rivalry is a big thing. As the oldest of 7, you can imagine I went through that, although I am unique as I'm finding things out. So I have 5 brothers and 1 sister, and my sister's 7 years younger than I am.
Okay.
And I've never had an argument with my sister in
What?
all our lives, never one. And really, most of my brothers, there's one brother, he is 14 months younger than me, so super close. And not only in a very patriarchal family, with me being the oldest and a girl, we were always fighting because he was a boy. One of the things that my mom did that I thought was absolutely brilliant was mom made sure that my sister wouldn't get into my stuff, that I had things that were, no, you don't have to share. That's yours. If you choose to, you can. And then it's not everything, but there's certain things that are important to the kids that, yeah, you don't have to share. That's yours. And then the other sibling is, and you have things that you don't have to share. No one's going to touch those. Giving them that feeling of ownership and autonomy and having some level of control over some of the things that are going on. That's a big help.
I was just thinking I really like that, and I am thinking about the things that I would tell my therapist about my family dynamics. I have a really hard time sharing. I hate sharing. It comes up with my husband, like he wants some of my French fries or something, and I'm like, I don't, yeah, no, I don't want to share with you.
No,
And
they're mine.
yes, and I think it's because there wasn't much that could be just mine, always.
Right. Well, and for me, at least with my sister, it was easy because with her being 7 years younger than me, she would never fit into my clothes. The clothes wasn't an issue. She was too young to be a threat with any boyfriends, right? And it didn't hurt that she was adorable and sweet and wonderful. And her nickname was Sunshine, which she still goes by Sunny this day. And that did help. I will give you that. But I do think that parents have a lot to do with how we're setting the stage for that. And also realizing that some level of sibling rivalry and argument and stuff is actually good. It's where kids learn how to negotiate. It's where they learn how to stand up for themselves. It's where they learn all of these skills that they're going to need in life. But sometimes, if we don't teach them how to do that, then they aren't going to learn it. And then that's when you get in with bad sibling relationships. And sometimes they just aren't recoverable. All seven of us are close. And we share, we do reunions. We try to get together about every 2 or 3 years. But imagine with seven and all our kids. I mean, the
Yeah.
last reunion we had, there were over 75 of us together on my brother's farm and, with grandkids and kids and all of that. And that wasn't even all of us, though. That was just who could come. So
Wow.
it's wonderful that we have that. And I really do credit my parents in helping us get there. And I think, though, practicing when tempers are cool, right? Not in the middle of, you're not going to teach them anything when they're ready to kill their sibling. Trust me, kill is not a far off word. Like, I'm a big advocate of weekly family meetings where we all get together and it is standard, same day, same time. I had one family I was coaching, this was a couple of years ago, and they had a late start one day a week for school. And then that was like teacher prep, teacher meetings. That's what that was all used for. But they had a late start. So they all got up at the same time anyway, had breakfast together. And that's when they had their family meeting. And they would go over schedules and calendar and stuff like that. But it's a great time to role play. And especially when your kids are little, even 3 years old, they love role playing. And so we can practice. Tommy's playing with the blocks, and I want that block for my thing. And is he allowed to say no? I asked nicely. I hear that all the time, right? That's nice that you asked nicely, and I really appreciate that. But Tommy needs that, and he's had it. He's using that to build. So, how can we negotiate for that? And one of the things that I've used both in my classroom and in the families that I'm coaching is like a toolbox. And we have this little toy toolbox. And inside I had these little things, cards that I laminate, ever the teacher, you laminate everything. And I laminated these, and it was a solution to set the timer for 5 minutes. And then when the timer's done, I know that I'm going to get it. Find something else to use. I can wait patiently. We can do rock, paper, scissors. It has all these different solutions that you can do. And so at the beginning, at our little family meeting, we don't put a bunch in there all at once. We might just put two in, and then we're going to practice them in our family meeting. How would this make this work? And then during the week, if you see that it's like, oh, guess what? This is so exciting. We get to use the toolbox now. And so you don't, it's like, why are you fighting? Why are you this? But you're like, oh, this is an opportunity. We get to use this. And if you come in with that kind of an attitude, and then the kids are like, oh, and then whichever one they pull out, that's what they're going to do. And then maybe the next week you might add a third and then a fourth or whatever. So we're slowly building up, but we're giving them time to practice
Yeah.
using those skills. And it's fun when eventually they don't even come to you, they go straight to the box. They're
Oh, yeah.
skipping over you because they know she's just going to send us to the box anyway. When I see that happen in my classroom, or parents will come back and they say, yeah, they just went straight to the box. It was so nice. So it is some work ahead of time, but isn't anything that's worthwhile. And are you going to have back steps where we fell backwards and we had an argument? And that's okay. That's okay. Expect that's human. That's how way it goes. But then we can redirect them again to, this is what we're going to do. Is it going to work 100% of the time?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no. But it is going to increase and it gives them that ability. And it just depends on what's going on. But you're helping them then to build that sibling relationship. Does that
Yeah.
make sense to you?
Yes, it does. I love that. I'm just going to repeat because I have to repeat a lot in life because it helps me keep my mind active and on track. I'm hearing that weekly family meetings, which I really love, we do monthly marriage meetings. So it feels really
Yeah.
in alignment with that, like a weekly
Hmm.
family meeting. I really like this idea of role playing because I can learn and practice the skill and we can make it a game. So that way it's not like a punishment that I have to do, but it's sort of like working out. I hate working out. So if it's not fun, I'm not going to want to do it. So
Yeah.
making it a game so that way it's fun, but it's also teaching really valuable skills, not just to manage a sibling rivalry, but
Hmm.
communication skills and skills that would help people navigate relationships. And I'm thinking that would be skills that would be transferable future on into like eventually when they get married and they have to
Exactly.
share or they have to negotiate or respect boundaries. And I'm thinking that's so cool. They're building their toolkit for life.
Right. Exactly. And this is going to expand out into friendships and the classroom. How am I negotiating with my classmates in school, which is then going to eventually go into the workplace. And you're learning how to negotiate those kinds of things too.
Yeah.
So you're just looking at what skills do I want my kids to have too?
Yes. I love that emphasis too, that it's not just this is right and this is wrong. I'm thinking these are the skills I want you to develop and helping you develop that.
Yeah. When I'm coaching other parents, it's been a fun thing to do and to hear the reactions, but then do something totally unexpected when kids are arguing with each other too. So one of the things I did was my kids were arguing with 5 kids. You can imagine that happened. And so put a pot on your head, go into the room where they are arguing and just start vacuuming. And they're like, what is she doing? And they're like, you just la, 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 totally ignoring their argument, totally ignoring it. But then they think mom has lost her mind. And yeah, probably. But and then the attention changes, right? The attention changes, and they're like, Mom, you have a pot on your head. Mom, there's a pot on your head. So get there. So then we just totally distracted them in a hysterical, fun way. There are other ways to do funny things to get their attention and not do it. My mom, who had a beautiful singing voice, would come in. She had this song, Love at Home. And so when we'd be arguing, and she'd come in her opera voice, there is beauty all around when there's love at home. I clearly don't have her voice, but she would come and belt it out in this opera voice and this love at home song. And as we're like ready to kill each other, and we'd have to stop, make fun of her. And she was fine with us making fun of her in doing that. And I think that was her goal. But being okay with that and understanding that, yeah, this is all the cacophony of life, right? But if our children are screaming and yelling at each other and you go rushing in and you start screaming and yelling, now there's one more person screaming and yelling. Nobody's learning anything. We're not calming, even though they may stop because whatever, if they feel threatened or whatever, that you're not helping with emotions and understanding. And two, if you can find joy in even those hard moments, what are
Mhm.
we teaching our kids then? That even when things are hard, whether it's in a marriage, whether it's as a parent, whether it's with the crazy neighbor next door, if you can find the joy or whatever in that moment, what a great skill to give our kids.
Yeah, I was just thinking some of what you were sharing about how I might need to develop that skill first. Again, we don't have kids, but part of the reason we don't have kids is because I feel terrified of having them. And so I'm thinking like my nervous system would feel so overwhelmed if there were 2 kids screaming at each other to go in with the pot on my head or something. I think I would somehow need to manage my overwhelm, then be able to do something like that.
Yeah.
It sounds challenging.
Yeah. And you bring up such a great point because honestly, truly honestly, when your kids are struggling with something, the first place that you need to look at maybe where we need to make changes is yourself. So, what is the example that I am setting for my kids? How do I speak to my spouse? How do
Mm,
I speak to my own siblings or about my own siblings? Maybe they're not in the room, but I'm like, oh, you crazy Uncle Ted. He's a nut, or he's so stupid, or he's this, or I can't believe he did this. That's your brother, and I'm seeing what you're doing. Do you see what I'm saying? Or you and dad, I hear you saying like rough things to each other. It must be okay because you're
yeah,
my mom and dad. Or how am I treating my parents? And I know that people have rough experiences with their
yeah.
own parents. And I will tell you that as much as I talk nicely about my mom, there were some really rough things. There was a lot of physical abuse that went on. There was a lot of men. And she had her own she was bipolar. There was a lot of struggle that went on with that. But again, finding what was good about that. I had a friend, and I even met her later on after I became an adult. But when I was like 4 and 5 years old, she was my babysitter.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. When my parents would go out. And she was like basically abandoned by her mom. This is like way back. I'm old. And she was older than me. And they lived in an apartment, and her parents had divorced. And her mom would just leave literally a jar of peanut butter on the table, lock her in the apartment, and go to work.
Oh,
There
yeah.
weren't a lot of resources back then for things. And back then, people just pitched in with each other. So instead of calling CPS, everyone in the apartment building just kind of watched out for Kathy, and they knew. And she liked to go swimming, and she knew how to undo the lock. Nice mom locked it, but I know how to undo it. And she would try to go into this pool by herself. But people were watching and paying attention. But she had a horrible relationship with her mom, felt very abandoned. But the one thing that she remembered was her mom would sing her the song about Alice in Wonderland. And then Kathy sang it to me when she would babysit me. And then 2 decades later, and I run into her and see her, I still remembered that song. And she said, that was the one good memory I took from my mom.
Yeah.
So even when you have maybe some really difficult memories, if you can carry on that one good thing and even share that with your kids and say, yeah, grandma and I, ugh, tough, hard, but I do remember this. And isn't that lovely that I have this memory?
Yeah.
And you can share that. That changes the conversation with your kids and then their whole outlook on family life.
Yeah, I really like that. I guess it's an intentionality that what you were saying before, maybe that I'm just repeating as I'm putting it together in my head, but you are thinking about what are the skills that I want them to have. And in order to teach them the skills, I have to teach by example, basically, is what I'm hearing you say.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love that. And then, too, I remember this growing up, and I was a hard kid, just saying. And I was the one that was always in trouble. And like my sister was clearly the favorite. And I was fine with that. She was my favorite, too. But there are feelings that come with that when there's an obvious
Same.
preference. And whether that's actual or perceived, it's going to internalize, and you'll know this, it's going to internalize the same way.
Yeah.
And so you want to make sure that your kids feel loved and that you see their zone of genius.
Hmm.
Every kid has a zone of genius. And it may not be math and it may not be writing, but it may be art, it may be football, it may be running, it may be just that amazing smile that comes out so quickly and brightens the room. Find their zone of genius and then make sure that you are highlighting that in their lives. And then make sure that you have one on one time, both parents, one on one time with each child. And put that on the calendar so that the kids see that and there's something to look forward to. Date night with Susie, dinner with Donnie, whatever it is
Yeah.
that, but that they're getting that one on one time on a regular basis, when they're younger. And I know it's hard. We're working and we're cleaning and we're cooking and there's laundry and all of that stuff. I know it's hard to set aside an hour each week. And if you've got 5 kids, whew, that gets exciting. But setting aside that time and maybe one week it's with mom and the next week it's with dad. So then maybe it's not quite so overwhelming, but finding that time to have those conversations and to have that time and you're doing what they want. Maybe it's going to a movie, maybe it's going to get pizza, maybe it's just out throwing the ball
Yeah.
or riding bikes or going swimming. It doesn't have to be an expensive thing that you're paying money for, even, but something that they choose that they like to do. And when they see their name on the calendar, that they mattered enough, that I made the calendar with
Yeah.
my name,
Yeah.
that gets in their head.
Yeah. I like that in general for as I'm thinking about how kids develop self-esteem. And in the context of sibling rivalry, I'm thinking there could be all sorts of comparisons
Mhm,
between me and my sibling. And then
mhm,
if you have a good kid versus the bad kid, or maybe you have one that's like just really strong-willed in some way, but
mhm,
they kind of get labeled as like the difficult
mhm,
one, that there are these ways of still helping counteract and build positive self-esteem versus it just
mhm.
internalize, like I'm the one that's the difficult one, or even potentially negative for the other one where I'm the one that gets ignored because I'm the good one or something like that.
And then there's that middle child syndrome that there's often, not always, the peacekeepers, like they're just trying to make everybody happy. And they do get lost in the shuffle a lot. You can learn about birth order psychologies, which is very interesting. If we're going to just nail it down to when children feel valued, there's not as much conflict. So when mom or dad comes home and the first thing out of their mouth is, "Where are my babies? And let me hug you." And I had such a hard day. And I knew though I could come home and get a hug from you and I would be better. And if you just invest that 5 minutes, that's all.
Yeah.
5 minutes. Let them see you kiss your spouse. Let them see you say, "Oh, honey, I love you," whatever. Let them hear that. And then let them experience that with mom and dad saying, "Oh, yeah, it's tickle wars or it's quiet hugs or different kids have different needs." And then you can say, "You know what? I got to go change my clothes. I need whatever." If you have a child that's kind of more clean, you can see that in your kid. You can say, "I'm going to set the timer. Some days you might need 20 minutes because you've had a really rough day." Okay, set the timer and say, "When the timer goes off, I want you to come get me. I'm going to come up and go up and change, get some things done upstairs or wherever it is. And then when the timer comes off, I am yours." And then you can do that. And so if one parent is maybe fixing dinner, the other parent can be out in the backyard or doing stuff with them so that they're feeling that attention. And I understand it. I did. I was going through it myself for all but 2 of my years of teaching. I taught where I was teaching the children of gang members generally. It was rough. It was hard. It was exhausting. It was enthralling. It was all of those good things too, but it was just exhausting. And so you come home and you just want to, "Oh, I'm going to die here." You don't want to do anything,
Yeah.
but you've got these amazing kids that you brought into the world. And it's okay to say, set the timer. And when they're used to that and they know when the timer goes off, mommy or daddy is going to come, have them help you make the dinner, have them help you fold the laundry. And when they're little, they love doing that. It won't last forever. So use it while you can. Have them help you with all of those things, engage them in your life, and you will see less arguing. Is it going to all go away? It's not supposed to all go away because this is where they learn things. They learn important skills and they learn that I can be mad at someone and still love them. That's
Yeah.
probably the most important one of all.
Yes, I really am glad that you're saying that because I'm thinking about maybe the pressure for it to be harmonious in some way. But I'm thinking like healthy development. I'm seeing it in the adults in their marriages, the ways that they weren't allowed to have anger. So that got suppressed, or they weren't allowed to have boundaries, or they were never taught how to respect someone else's boundaries. All sorts of stuff
Right.
that comes up and that we learn in conflict with other people. So I think what I'm hearing you say, if I get back to what you were saying, was like, it's okay that we don't want the home to be chaotic. And so we have strategies that we can help teach them these skills, but that we actually want them to work through conflict and to have where they can say no and be mad at each other and find ways to negotiate and repair and how to move through those moments together.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're so key. And maybe probably one of the last things that I would share is the promise and the value of service within the family. So maybe saying, oh, I noticed that Dougie is having a really hard time or they lost the game, whatever. And noticing that, oh, your sibling is sad or hurt or upset or whatever. What can we do to help? And then maybe can we go clean his room for him so that it feels good? Can we do this? We'll go feed the dogs for them. That was his job because, yeah, he's just having a hard time. One of my brothers, Don, had a newspaper route back in Los Angeles in the 70s. And every Christmas, we would get up crazy early in the morning to beat Don out there, and we would do his route for him. There were a couple of times when he was sick and wasn't feeling well. And so we'd get up and go do his route for him. And he never asked us to do that. But that was one way, something we could do for. It was service for. And mom got a lot of us involved. Some of them were too young to be able to do it. The three older ones and the four older ones could definitely help out a lot more with that. And so, what are some acts of service that we can do within our family? And maybe do a service tree or a gratitude chart or a jar where if somebody did something nice for you, you can write it down and throw it in, or just put the name of the person down because sometimes it's hard to write the whole story, right?
Yeah.
Sunny did something for me. I'm going to put her name in the jar. And then maybe at your family meeting, you can draw a name and maybe that person gets some fun experience or whatever, but you can't put your own name in. It has to be someone else. And that way, then they're starting to notice what their siblings actually are doing for them. Or then you're working to do more for them so you can get your name in the jar more often and it's something fun. But some of those strategies of helping them really notice what's really going on and maybe how can I help or how can I recognize that someone did something nice for me?
Yeah, I really like that. But I could see how both ways would help with sibling rivalry because now I'm thinking I'm more aware of when my siblings are doing nice things for me and can appreciate that. And that's like goodwill then between us.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm also going to be motivated to be nicer. If I'm doing like there might be some treat or something from.
Yeah.
I love all of these really concrete strategies. They make me feel calmer when I think about the idea of having kids, like to know that there are very concrete strategies that I
Yes.
could do. So I'm thinking, I don't know if you have any last words of wisdom, but I also want people to be able to connect with you somehow. If they need help thinking through what are these
Mm-hmm.
really concrete things that I could do to navigate challenges and overwhelm when it comes to
Yes.
parenting, how could they connect with you to get support around something like that?
Sure. Yeah. So my website is www.imperfectheroes.net, not .com. But if you go there, even if you look at, you'll see a thing for parent perspectives. And that's actually a free monthly workshop that I do. And so if you wanted to get a gauge or come in or just get a quick answer, it's the fourth Thursday of every month. So you can come and join in with some of the other parents that we have that I've got some standards that come almost all the time. And so we always get maybe a newbie or two. And so that's one thing that you can do. But I do coaching, I do one-on-one coaching. I will do group coaching. This was the funnest thing. I had grandparents and they had three kids, but they all live close together. So they did a 6-week group coaching session with everyone because the cousins were always playing with each other and grandparents are like, oh, everything's changed. And so that was a fun thing. So we have lots of opportunities if you want to do that. And then, of course, the podcast is Imperfect Heroes, Insights into Parenting. We have new episodes every Monday, and you can do that. And of course, you can always find my books on where it's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart's website.
Wonderful. And so we'll make sure to include all the links in the show notes if people just want to be able to click and find you. I'm thinking, wow, I feel it inside of me, like the overwhelm with thinking about kids. I'm thinking, what a valuable resource to know that it doesn't have to be so overwhelming, that there could be things you could do to manage it.
Oftentimes, as parents, we make it harder than it needs to be.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah,
So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
you bet. Thanks for having me. I really had a good time.
While I am a therapist, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not considered therapy. It should also not be a replacement for therapy. So if you think you need a professional of any kind, you should definitely go find one. Until next time.